I'm David Volk, a voice of the resistance, albeit a strange and funny one. Today's post, Cracker Barrel controversy. Bigotry goes mainstream in Rebrand. Restaurant's logo change has crackers over a barrel. With headlines flying so fast and furiously these days, the news of the Cracker Barrel restaurant's rebrand might have been easy to miss. Seemingly out of nowhere, the appropriately named Southeastern-based restaurant chain decided to change its logo by removing an old white dude named Uncle Herschel sitting on a chair next to a barrel. And the Southern maggots lost their collective mind. I say mind because individual maggots don't have their own minds. They rely on others to do their thinking for them. You kicked Herschel to the curb, one said. As another put it, the whole point of going to your restaurant was to get home cooking in a place that felt like Grandma's house. It's nostalgic. I agree. The Cracker Barrels that dot the South are nostalgic in the same way that the company's treatment of African-American diners also shows nostalgia for another era, like pre-1950s America. The chain has long had a record of being nostalgic for the pre-civil rights era, when African Americans could either be segregated into their own section of a dining room, be treated poorly, or outright refused service. Non-white employees also had to listen to racial slurs, accept lesser jobs within the company, and get paid less than their Caucasian counterparts. In fact, it cost the company $8.7 million in 2004 dollars, that is, whatever that means, to settle all the racial discrimination suits against it. As I see it, the real root of the kerfuffle was that Cracker Barrel executives felt that racism had become so mainstream under Trump that the firm no longer needed to code signal to white maggots that had embraced their bigoted Southern values. And so they no longer needed to have an illustration of a cracker sitting next to a barrel, essentially saying, "Hey, look here! If you're a bigot and you want a place to eat with other bigots, Cracker Barrel is it." No, the only way to make it more obvious until the rebrand would have been to rename the restaurant Peckerwood Barrel. The problem is that maggots not only love tradition, if something going back to just 1969 can be considered tradition, but they still think that they are being so victimized for being white that they see the change as an attack of wokeness. It's either that or they're so stupid that they wouldn't be able to find the place they're supposed to eat without contextual clues. You know, like a Confederate flag or a pointy pillowcase with eye holes cut into it. And maybe a tiki torch. Who knows? Maybe former MSNBC show host Keith Olbermann might be right when he says that maggots only like to eat at places that make fun of them. After all, the phrase cracker really isn't a compliment. So, if Cracker Barrel hadn't brought back Uncle Herschel as it did yesterday, his former diners could easily have opted for an as-yet-to-be-opened restaurant, including Honky's Home Cooking, Redneck Rotisserie, Hillbilly Hashery, the Peckerwood Diner, or for those in the movement who need everything spelled out for them, including what the business does, which would have required it to be called the White Trash Eating Place. And what of Cracker Barrel's rebrand? Well, perhaps the company has learned it's best to stay in your own lane and stick with those that brung you to the dance. Or, at the very least, that this country still isn't quite ready to upscale bigotry. Well, not yet anyway. I've been David Volk, a voice of the resistance, albeit a strange and hungry one.